We are going to create a fan art of Asterix. We show the complete process to demonstrate the entire workflow with BlockSurfaces. We start with the main options that I usually configure when starting work with BlockSurfaces. Remove objects with 0 users to avoid naming issues when creating new branches. BlockSurfaces relies on the names of objects within branches to generate the branch in that order. So, to avoid naming problems, it is highly recommended to check this box. This way, they will be completely deleted, and we will avoid conflicts. Also, I always work with local orientation and individual origins. This allows for easier handling of objects within branches. Create an object and with it selected. Create a new branch. We can give a name to the character and the branch we are creating. With the J shortcut, the object axes are displayed to adjust them better in each view. While using the E shortcut, we extrude the BlockSurfaces mesh. What we are actually doing is duplicating the active object within the branch and adjusting it as desired. We can see the branches with the randomly generated color that appears when creating a new one. To create a new branch, we can do it in 2 ways, either create a new branch from a new object or use an object from an existing branch. Extrude with E, actually duplicates the active object within the branch, and we adjust it to fit the concept. We can hide the objects that form the shape of the branch and work only with the visible one. This way, we will have a cleaner model. But we still manage the objects within the branches. It would be good to try to keep the interior objects of the branches not too heavy. This will make the work more fluid. We can give the branch any color we want. And we can also change the color of the interior objects of the branches here. The interior objects of the branches will have a single color for all branches. Changing one will change the color of all. We can also see the smoothed mesh of the branch. Although it is important to know that this is a visual effect, the mesh generated in the end by doing the remesh. And it will have marked edges as much as the subdivisions of the interior objects are seen. It is important to know this. It is simply a visual effect. We will have to smooth the mesh more or less by sculpting after the remesh. depending on the subdivisions of the interior objects. Although we can have it smooth to get an idea. Then, just before generating the final mesh, add the subdivisions we want. For the branches, the V keyboard shortcut shows or hides the generated mesh. And with the Alt-V keyboard shortcut, we can select the generated mesh. This way, we could work with the material of the generated mesh, not just with the color as done in the slot on the bottom bar. Modify this material as you like before using the Alt-V shortcut to manage the objects in the branch again. Let's try creating a skin material. We can even apply some subsurface, and we'll have a nicer skin. Using Alt-V again to work with the interior objects, even if we're not visualizing them. We adjust the objects in the other axes, seeking a better branch shape and getting closer to the concept. When we want to select an object that we can't see or access easily, we can use the up arrow and down arrow keys. We go one by one through the objects in the branch, so even if it's hidden, we can easily select the desired object. With the up arrow and down arrow shortcuts, we can select one by one in either direction. While with the left arrow and right arrow shortcuts, as you can see here, we go from first to last in the branch. When the objects in the branch are hidden, we can move using the up arrow and down arrow, select the desired object, and adjust the axis. Let's create another branch from a selected object or by creating a new object. We can apply a subdivision modifier and show the axes. It's good to know the direction of the axes of the objects we have in the branch because later we can make substitutions of objects in the branch. We can replace the selected objects in the branch with the active object, and if we know in which position they will be replaced, replacing the objects with the active one will be done in a more organized way if we have in mind how the objects are arranged within the branch. Now let's generate a new branch for the fingers. Here we can use the I shortcut to insert one in the center, specifying how many we want, and pressing the I shortcut will insert the number of objects we have marked here. We can use this to keep it in the correct proportion for the different phalanges. We can modify the objects of the branches in Edit mode or Sculpt mode. For example, we can adjust this object to be a bit more like the reference. We have here the symmetry of Sculpt mode and Edit mode. We adjust both sides at the same time. If we can't see well in one type of viewport shading, we can switch to another. When we have the object as we want it, and you can see how it changes the shape of the generated mesh. And like this, if we have the objects aligned on the same axis, we can make these two be replaced by the active object. all the selected objects will be replaced by the active object. With the Ctrl plus Alt plus Shift plus or shortcut, they are replaced. Now we have a finger that is a little more squared off. We use the P shortcut to create hierarchies within the branch. Pressing the P key displays a name on one side or the other of the active object. And this indicates where the children go. This tells us that this will be the parent of this will be the parent of this, and then we can move the objects hierarchically in the direction indicated by the name on one side or the other of the active object. You can see how the hierarchy will work in one direction or another. This affects how we modify the objects in the branch, as it will do it hierarchically. But if we only want the changes to affect one object, we can do it in two ways. By entering and modifying the mesh or by removing net parenting within the branch using the Ctrl plus Shift plus Alt plus P shortcut, we remove the hierarchy within the branch, and then each object is managed individually. And we would press P again to create the hierarchy again to easily position the entire branch. We reposition the branches to the desired position and then duplicate and reposition them easily with these hierarchies. This gives us full control of the branch with control when they intersect, and we cancel it when it suits us better. This way, we make quick adjustments to complete branches little by little, and with the P shortcut in one direction or another. So, when duplicating, the hierarchy of the new branch is created for easy repositioning. Using the J shortcut to clean up a bit to show or hide the axes. We adjust the objects in the branches to define the shapes better. Quickly pressing P changes the direction of the hierarchy and adjusts. We adjust it. Let's select a part of the branch. And we can duplicate only that part. To duplicate a branch, it's Ctrl plus Alt plus D, and to duplicate a selected part, it's Ctrl plus Alt plus S. We duplicate only that part. Since I have the hierarchy on this side, I change the direction and adjust the last object without modifying the others. We select some objects in these branches to give them a material. We copy the material from the Active Objects branch to the rest of the branches with any selected object. We create a new branch here to block out the legs. As the active object is duplicated, we can reset the scale and have the sphere we initially had. Repositioning the object, thinking a bit about the joints if we plan to pose or easily reposition the limbs later. And as always, we adjust the proportions in the different axes, seeking the shape of the concept. And we repeat the process of extruding the branch by duplicating the active object. We reposition the new object and adjust it in one view or another, considering the different axes and seeking the shape of the concept. We use the P shortcut again to create the hierarchy in one direction or another and adjust easily. We can use sculpt mode to better achieve the desired shape, or add more subdivisions working in edit mode. We have a lot of freedom with the objects within the branches. Just don't make them too heavy to have a smoother workflow. Still, after many collections and objects, it seems to work quite well. Now we can copy the material from one part to another and use it to create a new material with this other button. So, we copy the material from the active object to the selected objects. Here, we create a new material based on the one we had. Now we have a new material, and it's a good option if we want to create a different material with a few modifications. And we continue the process, creating a new branch for the feet. Here, since I'm interested in having a smooth part, we can select and lower it in edit mode. And again, we repeat the process of duplicating and adjusting the objects within the branch. We adjust the new objects keeping in mind if they will be in an articulated area or not and where the axes fall, in case we later want to modify the joint. It's helpful to have thought about it during the creation process. We copy the material from another branch and create a new one if we want to modify it to create a new material. Now let's select these branches. We can check the direction of the hierarchies of these branches. Using keyboard shortcuts, we move to the start or end of these branches and select the initial object. I select the object that will be the parent of the initial objects of those branches, making it the active parent of all selected objects. And with the Ctrl plus Shift plus Alt plus left arrow shortcut, we make the selected objects children of the active one. If the arm has the correct hierarchy, we can see how a hierarchy for the entire arm and its fingers is quickly set up. Now, if I make the object of the torso the parent of the first object in the branch, we have the arm articulated with the torso. We use the up arrow or down arrow shortcuts to navigate the branch and select the objects that are not visible. And again, we use the Ctrl plus Shift plus Alt plus left arrow shortcut to parent the arm with the torso. Using Ctrl plus Shift plus Alt plus right arrow would undo that hierarchy or any other hierarchies the selected branches have. Using the P shortcut on the torso, we establish its internal hierarchy in the correct direction. And I think this would be a good time to save the processes. It's a good habit. Okay, let's continue with other parts. We're going to create a branch for the head. We reset the scale with Alt-S and start extruding and fitting the objects in different views. Here, I'm creating objects that will be inside the final structure, but this way, I can maintain continuity in the branch and later articulate it. The objects inside won't create the outer surface, but we can use them to properly articulate each part. The objects that I create inward also help to create smoother transitions. So, with objects that push the shape inward, the next one I generate in the branch will have a more pronounced shape change. This helps us better control the volume of the final mesh. We can insert an object here using the I key and the number of objects we have set. Gradually, we search for the shapes in one view or another, and we can achieve the main volumes by adjusting the scale, editing, or sculpting the objects. Here, I'm also creating objects inside to create another shape that belongs to the same branch. Alternatively, we could create a new branch and parent it, adjusting to the concept. We show or hide the generated mesh with the V shortcut for more comfortable work. Let's give the head a material using the one we made for the arm. We'll copy it. We create another new branch for the ear and extrude as usual, adjusting to the concept. We apply the hierarchy with the P shortcut, which helps us adjust it to the concept without having to move object by object. We can also use tools like proportional editing to help us move the objects as a group. We readjust and make adjustments in different views. We quickly enable or disable the parent-child relationships and make the influence radius smaller. So, we can use different tools to achieve the desired shape. Just like before, we can copy the material we already have for the skin. We select all objects in the branch with the L shortcut, and from there, we create a new branch called muscle flat to cover surfaces like this. The new branch is generated, encompassing all the selected objects. With the generated muscle flat, we have this button to select the muscle flat objects, allowing us to adjust the shape by scaling those objects. Let's apply the skin material. When we exit this mode, only objects from the normal branches are selected. This is because the muscle flat objects are parented to the objects that generated them. So, when we move the objects in the branch that generated them, we are also moving the muscle flat objects, shortcut M. Thus, muscle flat is a great option for creating membranes, for example, when quickly creating wings. We create a new branch to make the hat based on the selected object in the head. We adjust and edit the mesh to achieve that part of the hat. We create interior objects to reach the desired result and control how the mesh is generated according to our needs. Here, we can achieve a better shape by editing the vertices. On the other side of the branch, I continue extruding to create the edge on the lower part of the helmet. I duplicate and maintain the interior to create a sharper shape change and edit the mesh to achieve the desired form. Instead, I could have generated a torus object and replaced objects as we did with the hand to easily achieve the shapes. We can view the surfaces with smoothing using this button, and here we give color to the generated mesh. With Alt+V, we can select the generated mesh, and thus, we can modify the material to adjust it as much as we want. When we finish, with Alt+V again, we go back to the objects in the collection. We have a keyboard shortcut to add to the selection in one direction or another, using Ctrl+Shift+Alt+B or V to add or subtract from the selection. Duplicating the selected part with Ctrl+Alt+S, we adjust it to the desired position. We make the parent-child relationships for this part. The object that is the parent of the branch becomes a child of the hat. You can have all these shortcuts visible on the screen with the option in the panel to display them. We create a new branch for the eyes, inserting objects and adjusting them to create the desired shape. I create another new branch, and we adjust it in the same way. We give color to the branches. We create another one. Now, let's create a branch for the eyebrows. We shape the object. We duplicate it, and we can use the snap tools to adjust the objects to the surface. We reposition and adjust the shapes as usual. Extrusion, scaling, and adjustment are the key techniques. We spend some time to achieve a better shape. Let's create another branch for the mustache. Using the same techniques, we search for the basic shapes in each part. It's very important to have the head thinking about what the basic shapes are, and from there, we will achieve everything. Then, spending a little time adjusting the basic shapes. The different views are crucial to achieve a model with a good foundation. Try not to go into sculpting too soon and obtain the basic shapes where they should be. I think BlockSurfaces helps a lot in focusing efforts on obtaining minimally correct basic shapes before starting to sculpt. Later, it allows us to reuse parts, use basic shapes for other parts, and speed up the process. Now would be a good time to save the progress. We parent the different eye branches to handle them as one and adjust them more quickly. With the eyebrow, using P, we give hierarchy to the branch and adjust it all. With Ctrl plus Shift plus Alt plus P, we temporarily remove the hierarchy to adjust them individually. A few more adjustments here. We're going to duplicate hair strands, reusing branches to speed up the process. We reposition, adjust, and scale the branches, following the same process with all of them. When duplicating the branches, they are hierarchical within the branch, so dragging the first object allows us to easily reposition them. Remember to have patience, and adjusting the basic shapes will greatly help you have a good final model before sculpting. If we don't want to remove the parenting within the branch but still want to modify the objects individually, we can do so in edit mode. Ctrl+L selects all objects in the branch. We change the color of the branch. Alt+V selects the BlockSurfaces object generated by the branch, allowing us to modify the material. We adjust it and use Alt+V to go back to the objects in the branch. We continue with the details of the belt, creating new branches. Make sure to use Alt+V to be on the BlockSurfaces object generated by the collection, otherwise, you will be changing the material of the objects within the branch. P for hierarchy again within the branch, allowing us to drag them all with the first object. And we duplicate the branch to create the other ornaments. Let's create a new branch for the helmet feathers. You know, I like to create a cube, subdivide it, and apply subdivision. We create the branch, adjust it, and start extruding, and adjusting as usual. I have the axes visible to position them in the same direction. This way, we can replace some objects with others, and they will be placed correctly. For example, let's modify this one. We select all objects in the branch, and the active object will be the one we put in the selection. If we uncheck the single user checkbox, the objects will share the mesh, and when we modify one, all the others will be modified when we replace them with the active object. By using Ctrl plus Shift plus Alt plus R to replace, we make the selected objects have the mesh of the active object. Now, if I modify any of the objects, the others will change as well, and we have easily adjusted the shape of the entire branch. We reuse branches by duplicating them and repositioning them as needed. We adjust the objects in the new branch. We can delete some with the X shortcut to delete individual objects or entire branches. And we repeat the process for the rest of the feathers. Again, we use the P shortcut to change the hierarchy within the branch and reposition more easily. If we don't need more, we duplicate only the selected part of the branch with Ctrl plus Alt plus S. We use shortcuts to navigate through the objects in the branches if it's difficult to select them directly. Up arrow, down arrow to move forward or backward through the objects in the branch. Left arrow, right arrow to go directly to the first or last object in the branch. As you can see, it's the same process repeated for different parts, making the work easier. It's very important to delete using the add-in operator, X shortcut. This way, we maintain order in the branches, and there won't be any issues with how the mesh is generated. Let's make one of the branches the one that attaches to the helmet. We parent the rest of the branches to this one, and this one will be parented to the helmet, so everything will move together. Let's adjust the feathers in the other view. We look for something that fits as closely as possible in both views. And we make all the branches initial selected objects children of the object to which they will be parented to the helmet. Now we can finish placing the branches in the correct position. I enter edit mode to prevent the other branches from moving and adjust the shape at the junction with the helmet. we give them a more appropriate color for the feathers.